Robinhood is one of those companies that's extremely correlated to the macro economy. When the markets are performing well, business is booming, people are feeling enthusiastic. Robinhood does very well. People deposit money into the platform, people have extra money to invest, people are feeling risky, and so they're adding more money, taking more chances, trading more frequently, and that all bodes well for Robinhood. Unfortunately, the opposite is also true, which is what you've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. As market sentiment has soured, stock prices and especially cryptocurrency prices are falling, and Robinhood stock price is reacting more noticeably than most of the market. The next question then becomes, is that a buying opportunity for long-term investors interested in Robinhood stock? I'll answer that question in this video, looking at the company's revenue growth over the previous several years, looking at the cash flow, looking at the returns on investor capital, and finally looking at the valuation on a forward price to earnings and price to free cash flow to determine if Robinhood is a good risk versus reward for long-term investors at current prices.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
Of course, if you've been following Robinhood stock, you'll have noticed the extreme price action in 2025. The company has taken investors on an involuntary roller coaster ride. The stock soaring to start the year up close to 75% before crashing back down and is now down over 4.3% year to date in 2025. It's been a roller coaster ride, to be sure. That being said, the company's trailing 12-month revenue has grown nicely in the last 5 years or so, up to $2.95 billion in the most recent trailing 12-month period. That's up from about $800 million in 2021. And most impressively, it's up more than double where it was in 2022. If you remember, back then was the most recent prior to this week. The biggest stock market decline was in late 2022 when central bankers, especially the central bank in the United States, started increasing interest rates in response to inflation. And that's when tech stocks fell considerably and cryptocurrency prices crashed. And of course, unsurprisingly, that was bad news for Robinhood. And so investors are now anticipating a similar trend for Robinhood now that markets have turned, right? Today, March 10th, 2025, the NASDAQ Composite Index was down over 4%. Cryptocurrency prices are down below $80,000 for Bitcoin. The other cryptocurrency prices are down even more percentage-wise over these last couple of weeks. And so that overall risk-off sentiment where investors are tightening their belts, being less willing to take chances on these unproven investments, on these unprofitable growth stocks and speculative cryptocurrencies, all of that is going to be, or is anticipated to be, bad news for Robinhood in the upcoming quarters. That being said, in the most recent quarter, in the most recent update on February 12th, Robinhood's management team said that the number of gold subscribers increased by 86% to 2.6 million. That's a record for the company. Net deposits increased to 16.1 billion. That was an increase of 42% from the previous quarter. Transaction-based revenues surged by over 200% to 672 million, and cryptocurrency trading contributed to 358 million, reflecting more than a 700% increase. That's how much that enthusiasm around the election and President Donald Trump taking office and all of that enthusiasm surrounding the stock market and risky investments like cryptocurrencies fueled growth for Robinhood. But now investors are concerned that all of that has been nearly wiped off and it's heading in the wrong direction. And President Donald Trump even said, I'm not watching the stock market, making investors believe that it could be much lower from here, which again would be very bad news for Robinhood, as we saw in 2022 when revenue declined from nearly 1.8 billion all the way down to 1 billion. Still, the company recovered from that and has grown revenue up significantly higher. So the company's cash flow from operations has been volatile on a trailing 12-month period. No clear uptrend here in this metric, although when they do have really strong performance, it does result in outsized performance in cash flow from operations. It's had several periods where on a trailing 12-month basis, it generated 1.2 billion, 1.2 billion, 1.5 billion, close to 2 billion in cash flow from operations. And save for that one period at the end of 2022 when it went negative 2 billion, it's done a pretty good job managing cash flow from operations. But again, investors are concerned that Robinhood could deliver another few months of this type of performance, negative over a billion in cash flow, if the company experiences a big slowdown in engagement from its user base, withdrawals, slowdowns in activity, less interest in cryptocurrencies. All of that could return the company's performance back to these levels where it was the previous, I don't want to say stock market crash, but stock market decline, where there was a broad-based pullback in terms of risk assets across the board, crypto, tech stocks, momentum stocks, etc., all experienced declines in late 2022. And there's a palpable fear that that's what's happening right now in the markets. Palantir, where did that come from? I guess I'm thinking about momentum stocks and stocks that are falling more than usual right now. But Robinhood's return on investor capital at 11.11% is up considerably from 2022 when it was negative 60%. So it's made great progress following those declines. And that's an important point. If investors are concerned that this decline here is going to be bad news for Robinhood, generally speaking, these declines in the stock market are temporary. Markets recover and they move higher as they've done for the past several hundred years. And so, since Robinhood has already demonstrated that it can go through this kind of market swoon and come out of it stronger than before, that's something that should reasonably make investors more confident about Robinhood's prospects going through this downturn, because they've already been through a downturn and proved to investors that they can come out of it and still improve the business's performance and viability longer term. And so following these big stock price declines, Robinhood is now trading at a price to earnings of 20 and a price to free cash flow of close to 16. I think these are attractive valuations given the business prospects of Robinhood. Now, I'm not a fan of the management team and how they've handled certain situations, notably how they handled the meme stock frenzy and how they encourage investors to treat the stock market more like a casino than a long-term wealth building machine. I'm not a fan of those actions and tactics. Still, the company at its current valuation looks attractive to me. And so, to answer the question, do I think the stock is a buy, hold, or a sell? I have Robinhood stock rated as a buy. Hey everyone, so many of you have been asking about my investing strategy, and I'm excited to announce that I've written a book that's available for sale now that describes my 6-step investing framework for evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.